about today is the completion of the process of registering all our candidates. We have registered 4,468 ward candidates, and we have registered candidates for 257 metros. That means that you local governments and the metros, which are your PR list, known as your PR list. So we are done. We covered. We actually concluded our registration on the 20th, and yesterday, in the main, we were dealing with change of addresses, where people had changed their addresses maybe a week ago, and the IEC system hadn't caught up with it yet, but it's now completed. What we feel good about is that 46% of our ward and PR candidates are women. Although women candidates are mainly found on our PR list, we are proud of the fact that women gain the confidence of their communities to be selected as ward candidates. And as you all know, this is the year that we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of Charlotte Makeke. It is encouraging that women are being affirmed in this manner, but I do want to say there's a lot of work to be done. And we want to say that non-sexism, in our view, is parity, complete parity. But there's an interesting dynamic on the ground, even though we in the party, in the ANC, might insist on parity. At the community level, it hasn't rolled down yet. People still are electing men to be ward councillors. So we have a great deal of work to do, and that's what we will be doing in the next couple of months and so on. We also have quite a diverse list of candidates representing people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQI community, as well as various community leaders who might not be well known publicly to everybody else, but on the ground, they are the people who belong to NGOs and are really the life and breath of many of the institutions and the communities where they come from, and they've been elected by the communities. We have also a number of young people on our list. We have a candidate as young as 20 years contesting the Buffalo City area and also in Johannesburg and in Kucha. We insisted that the list must have a component of young people. Approximately 25% of our list is composed of young South Africans, so that we can vote for the future. I must say they're quite impressive young people. Many of them are postgrads or graduates, and I think they will bring a lot of new thought and thinking and new life into the local governments here. What we did as the ANC, we decided to have internal elections, primaries internally. It was an internal mechanism that we chose for ourselves, whereby we made sure that communities were able to participate in the selection of a candidate that they could work with and that they knew. This is a new process that was quite tumultuous, I must confess, but we are confident that this new ANC process of selecting local candidates is the best process to ensure that communities do participate in the selection of a person that will represent their interests in a particular ward. It ensures that those who emerge as ANC candidates are also rooted in their own communities and enjoy the confidence of the community. And this is really a true exponent of the principle of the freedom charter that the people shall govern. We do want to share with you that there are many lessons that we have drawn from this process. We remain painfully aware that within our own ranks, there were few people who were determined to subvert and undermine ANC rules and guidelines. The NEC committee and the electoral committee took a dim view of alleged attempts by some within our ranks to manipulate the process. In this regard, the ANC will implement the recommendations of the electoral committee to ensure that these un-ANC tendencies do not recur. I do want to say to you that it's important that we also reaffirm that the ANC's elections committee ran the processes independently of ourselves here at HQ, independently of the provincial secretariat. Our task was to give them support in whatever they needed to do. And that gives this process quite a great deal of independent credibility. But with it also comes a number of questions from people who did not want to go that route. There are branch leaders who still felt that they should have been the candidate no matter what, whether the community agreed or disagreed. So we do have a lot of disputes that are unresolved, but our commitment is that we will continue to meet with those people after the election and continue to discuss and debate the concept of community involvement and being a servant of the people, selected by the people, if people are going to be successful. We believe that the members of the ANC carry a responsibility to safeguard the credibility and the integrity of our internal democratic processes, and we wish to assure our members that any deviation from the rules and guidelines which materially affected the nomination of some candidates will not be left unattended, even beyond the 1st of November. The overwhelming positive lesson was that when given an opportunity to participate, communities have responded. We will, however, take some action in a few instances, as I said, to ensure that there is corrective action against some leaders who disregarded the community's wishes. However, on the list would be the community's wish. So there might still come a complaint. We're confident that the ANC candidates, we have men and women, young and old, from all walks of life, who are committed to work tirelessly to better their communities. What will happen after the 1st of November? Immediately, we will begin the training of all our candidates properly in all aspects of local government processes. Many of them are former councillors. Some of them are former councillors. But we will retrain everybody. And there is a serious commitment to bring local government into the sphere as the place where real delivery happens. Over and over again, we see service delivery protests that come up and so on. I also want to just raise with you the matter of a certain Mr. Kente that was raised this morning, and I know you asked the question, so let me answer the question before you ask it. We've been informed that he has appeared in court on a criminal charge of violence. What we then do immediately, we look at that quite seriously. We were given that information in the early hours of this morning. The information comes from the candidate who did not win the community vote. So we also have to take extra special care to make sure that the accusation is indeed a proper one, and it is not something that has been made up, and we have to be careful because people can take us to court if we remove them from the list based on an allegation that might not be correct. What has happened already yesterday, we have removed a number of people from the list. We removed a woman in the Western Cape who was extremely unpleasant to a group of people she addressed who were HIV positive people, and they charged her with criminal injury. We removed her. A number of other people who have appeared in various courts on serious criminal offences. I just want to make this very clear. So if it's a traffic fine or a traffic offence, I would say 90% of those who drive might not be able to stand on any platform for anything. So that is not serious. What we regard as serious is housebreaking, rape, murder, assault with the intention to do grievous bodily harm, fraud, corruption. The list is endless, but it does not include a traffic fine. We also cannot include a person who's been given the option of a fine and not a sentence, because the law enables people to stand who've been given an option of a fine. the legal system does that. So they could also become independent. Hence, the issue of traffic fines, we've received a lot of people sending a traffic fine allegation. So what happens now is we start receiving what's called exception report from the IEC. So beginning this morning, the team looks at all the exceptions and we engage with the various councillors for whom there is an exception. If the exception is a serious matter, then we talk to the provincial list committee and also to the elections committee led by Comrade Jessie. If that person has to be removed, we have to provide the number 2 on the list as the alternative to that person. But we do not do that. We first get a written letter from the province and from the elections committee. After this has been done, a number of queries that we are getting is wrong addresses. So that is easily fixable. Where the person might have moved from one street to another, but in the same ward. So that's what we're doing right now. I don't know what else to tell you, and of course we are busy with our election campaign. So in the middle of this, I'm not going to be talking about the manifesto to you, please pardon me. We are launching our manifesto on the 27th. The President will be speaking in Tshwane at 7 p.m. So you will pardon us. We're not going to discuss what is included in the manifesto. Then we might as well not have the President do a launch. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much, and from Claire will take your questions. I didn't bring a pen, so please, I would have to rely on you. Or give me a pen. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Lord. Come with your questions. And just to also inform members of the media, we will be having an online portal to allow the media DSG to register and be accredited to attend the manifesto launch because of the numbers that we have to maintain. So we'll publish that. The head of elections will be making that announcement, I think, on Friday afternoon. Okay.
Okay, let me stop. Let me the ANC. How many questions, Mr. Mark?
You ask one at a time. Because if you ask 30 questions, I'm not going to answer them all, and then you're going to go away unhappy.
Okay, just 2 crucial questions. Just one. Can we get clarity in terms of in Johannesburg? You just interviewed 3 candidates for the mayor. We just wanted to know what happens now. Do we go back to the re-nomination process through the RSC, or you consider one of the 2 candidates that were number 2 on the list after the late Mr. Jogi Madong? And then number 2, has there been confusion as well in the Northwest in terms of how the parties dealing with the IPC and the PLC? Because I know in the report you actually, or in a statement released, you were quite aggrieved about how the IPC coordinator from NHR dealt with the whole process of the candidate selection process. And you also said he created confusion, which was a big problem, which we witnessed in the province as well. So it's the party to that as well.
Okay. Is there
This is the time for the making happen. DSG, in terms of your mayoral candidates, I know that traditionally you don't really release those names, but considering what happened in 2016, especially in Tshwane, I'm wondering if this community engagement will it form part of the choosing of mayoral candidates, or will regions choose? Given that Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe, the former president, did say that there was manipulation and influence by regional secretaries. Will this weigh heavily on the mark? And in terms of funding, DSG, the election head, Fikile Mbalula, has said this morning that you're looking at projecting that you will be spending about 50 billion in these elections. Do you have a clear projection of how much you will be spending?
okay? Expenditure.
Hi, DSG. It's Natasha Green from SABC. I think Lizzie covered you with your candidates. You've also covered part of my question in regards to some of the disputes. Can I just get an indication from you as to how many disputes are unresolved at this point in time. And then yesterday, just speaking to my colleague in the Northwest, Patrick Inga, ANC NEC member, I spoke to him over the disputes that the ANC had actually had in regards to this candidate minister, and he had said that the ANC had resolved to actually investigate some of those disputes after the elections. So now my question is, would you face backlash from some of these candidates if they are required to actually step down, if they're found wanting, perhaps? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you can.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, let me just say that the mayor of Johannesburg is not in his grave yet. And it would be really, culturally, I'm having a difficulty discussing his replacement culturally. Even the process of his replacement, I just think there are just some things you do not do. So we'll wait a bit and then we'll decide how to go forward. Then let me talk about Northwest. The report of, let me be clear about this, because sometimes colleagues, you say Jessie Duarte says, and then on the ground, people point fingers. The report that you have, which was leaked to you, that was presented by Halima Mutlanti in a closed session of the National Executive Committee, indicated that the Elections Committee was unhappy with the behavior of the coordinator of the Northwest Province. And the recommendation is that we should look into all the incidences that happened, and we discuss it and we come up with a way forward. I can't remember the word confusion in the report, but that there was not a good working relationship between the IPC and the Provincial List Committee. IPC is only supposed to give administrative support. It is the PLC that makes the fundamental. So I'm going to leave it there because we haven't as yet gone into it. We received the report last week, Friday, and we've been busy with registration, so we'll get to it when there's time. On the mayoral candidates and the selection of that, you have to be a councillor to be a mayoral candidate. You can't be a mayoral candidate if you're not either a PR councillor or you are, on the PR list, or you're not a ward candidate. So our process is as follows. For Metro, the Provincial Executive Committee, not the REC, will discuss the choice of 3 possible candidates that would fit all the criteria we have set up, which is quite stringent. The people must have had a experience in government somewhere. You did not have to, it did not mean that you should have been a councillor all your life, but you might even have been a minister and you now stand as a ward councillor. We don't have any of those, I must just say. There's no one like that, but I'm just giving you that as an example. We prefer people who have a very solid understanding of financial management. We would prefer people who have a very deep-rooted understanding of the ANC itself. So a long-standing member of the ANC would be the preferred candidate. But we also would like someone who understands the city that they are going to represent very, very well. So it can't be someone who's lived all their life in eThekwini, but would like to be the mayor, and is now a ward candidate, has moved, and would like to be the mayor of Johannesburg. That's not to work. We need somebody rooted, who's been in the city, who understands it, who knows the rhythm of the city. It's difficult to actually find out how you know the rhythm of the city, but you do know when you interview people. So the mayor candidates are going to be very carefully selected for the metros. For the local municipalities, We will allow the regions to have an input, but the interviews will not be conducted by anybody from the region. We set up panels. We've already done 3 local municipalities in Limpopo. The panels are set up by members of the National Executive Committee. We might even include high-profile people who are academics or who are in business in a panel, and they will do the interviews and make recommendations. So it's not a really, there is no one at the moment in any of the ANC selected wards who can say, I'm definitely going to be the next mayor. Okay, I just want to put that. On funding, on expenditure, I really haven't a clue because Fikile Mbalula is the head of the elections. They deal with the procurement, they would understand best what they will spend on what we need for this election. So I'm not going to hazard a guess. I think it's dangerous to do so. No, I really haven't a clue. What we know we need is we need posters. We need to do some digital media. Yeah. So whatever that costs is what the best person and the knowledgeable person. If he has raised a figure with you, then that is probably the correct figure. Okay. On unresolved disputes, I have said this in the statement that post the election, we will sit down with people who still feel aggrieved. But one thing everybody is going to have to understand: we had a process. We went to the NC, the electoral committee, led by Halima Mutlanti, drafted guidelines. They brought those guidelines to the National Executive Committee. The National Executive Committee adopted those guidelines. The National Executive Committee is the decision-making structure between conferences. Those guidelines have authority. And therefore, any person is going to have to accept that. If you fell outside of the authority of those guidelines and you therefore dispute the process, it isn't going to help you now. The only dispute that may be relevant is if a person can prove without reasonable doubt to the ANC that they were indeed the candidate that the community did select. That is, I would regard that as a genuine dispute. However, even then, because we, on the PR list, we always attempt to have gender parity. If a male candidate was moved down on the PR list to accommodate a woman to get gender parity, we were satisfying our policy perspective. And that is going to have to be something, unfortunately, that men must accept. Hard as it is a policy reality for the ANC. Because out of the elected ward candidates, and I repeat that again, our country didn't do very well there. Our communities did not do very well. And so we had to compensate women in the PR list to achieve the gender parity that we require as a policy matter. So I think I've answered all your questions.
Thanks, DSG. Last round of questions. Oh, okay. We also have got questions, DSG, that are coming through the WhatsApp line because they had raised them first. Maybe let's read them out and then we will take
Just go slowly because last time you were so fast I couldn't even catch up with you. Okay.
No, I was rehearsing today, DSG. This one is from Jason Fix, News 24. What impact will the internal dispute have on the ANC's candidate lists and will it be dealt with after the elections?
Asked and answered.
Yes, and this is how many councillors have been removed from the ANC candidate list as a result of the step aside. The next one is two from Tsidi Madia. Responsibility for this. Second question. Bringing the community on board is something the ANC seems to be taking pride in. However, the gun down of 3 women in Inanda is seen as opening the door to violence, often seen in the party during this time now affecting community members? Is the ANC concerned? Is it thinking about how to navigate this possible threat to those outside the party, but wishing to participate in picking who must lead? Let's deal with this once and then we'll go.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Felix's question was asked, I answered it. Okay, I don't remember how many exactly were removed from step aside rule, but if my memory is correct, out of 4,468 initial people, we moved 3 people in the Dala Omar region because they had already indicated they were with other parties. They had moved to another political party. We removed the lady that had insulted people with HIV and AIDS in Ward 94, also in the Western Cape. We had removed the mayor of Beaufort West because he was criminally charged. I think there were a few other people. I mean, I don't have a number. I apologize, but I wasn't prepared to come and give a verse and chapter of. But they were removed. If they had a criminal record, they were asked first of all step aside and then removed. Again, let me be clear, by the Elections Committee. What our task is to do the technical stuff. We do the technical thing. Then on the issue of the 3 people, unfortunately, that was the great sadness, loss of 3 very active ANC members who were standing in line at a place in Inanda to participate in a mock election on that day. We are very concerned, and we still believe that we have to continue to try to assist our communities to move away from this pandemic of violence, especially the violence that has been perpetuated against women candidates. We are aware that in other parts of the country, primarily in Winterveld and parts of Tshwane, women were intimidated not to stand as candidates, so that a man could be the candidate and went to the community and presented themselves as the only possibilities. It's hard. This is work that we all have to do. Let me say frankly, it is not just the ANC that must deal with the pandemic and deep-rooted sense of entitlement that some people have in our country, whether they're ANC or not. And the person who asked the question is correct to say that it is a problem. We are concerned with the problem, but we cannot undermine the democratic processes, because it could even happen at a voting station when people go and vote. This can happen. So we're just hoping and praying that we can move in a direction where social cohesion becomes a debate and a discussion on the ground. We have violence against women and children. We have violence against candidates. We behave violently if somebody insults a song in a taxi. So our country needs to take a deep breath and understand that it's not possible to continue along this vein. And that violence of that nature stems from a condition that we've analyzed, where people want to be councillors so that they can have access to the resources in the council, and they become vicious and dangerous. And the only way to actually overcome this is to have our communities decide who must be their representative. And we feel we're correct in that. Philip, over to you.
Thanks, Leslie. Amos, was those are the 2 questions? Okay. Okay, we can proceed to. Okay, let's start with new hands. Okay.
Okay, with the SAPC. In the nomination process of your would-be councillors, at some point you spoke about some community members who happen not to be ANC members. And at some point, when those people get picked up by the communities, then they will be socialized to ANC politics, or there will be taken in as ANC members. The question that we asked last time is how many of those have you identified? And we were told that after the list has been submitted, that's when we will be in a position to can tell us how many are non-ANC members. And maybe something that is not related to the list process. But the UK government, Madam Deputy Secretary General, has issued or has placed South Africa continuously on the red alert. And we are told some people from different countries who have received the Pfizer and the J&J jab are allowed into the UK, except for South Africans. We know that as a political party, we wouldn't be in a position to convince the UK. But your deployees and government, they've got a government-to-government relationship with those people. Is there anything that you're doing to sort of, or what's your view on the treatment of South Africa?
My name is Duarte from Sowetan. You know, the report that you have already spoken about, even though you say it was a question, it actually identifies not only Mr. Chao of the IPC, but other individuals, national leaders, physicalities of the manipulated the candidates process. But now, as you are saying, the finalists that you submitted, you say you have confidence in it, and you say you have confidence if there are disputes, they will be resolved after the election. But I wanted to ask, to what extent do you think the accusations that have leveled against, the regional leaders of having manipulated this process, to what extent have you been able to identify the ones where they have actually done such manipulation? Because obviously, if you have not been able, it will question the integrity of the final list. And there is action that has been recommended against them. To which now the committee throws the ball on your court as the case. What practical steps are you taking against the leaders who have been individually flagged, even some by name, in terms of the manipulation of the process? And just that, some of the individuals who were complaining, against the manipulation of the candidate this process in Tawaz have even resorted now to say they are going to contest as independent candidates in the event that they are able to resolve the problem, the issue we have. How concerned are you about that? I mean, as the ANC, given that in some municipalities previously, we have had the problem of people who they are able to ANC, they were independent candidates, including Manoka, where you would be material affected as an organization.
Okay, can I just take all the questions?
Yeah, please.
Some of them are simple.
Duarte, you've mentioned some people that were removed off the list. Can you just confirm or just tell us if the Newcastle mayor and the Emalafian regional chairperson, Dr. Makaba, are they still on the list or not? Thank you.
Okay.
It's been asked.
Okay. Covered.
Right, yes, you may just your view as a party on this. The South African regulator approving controversial floating power plants, power ship being approved by NERSA. Previously, we know that the Department of Environment had, of course, rejected this contract, saying it was a threat to marine life. I just wanted to know maybe what's the party's view on this contract being approved by NERSA.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me start with this question about the guidelines that were drafted by Comrade Khalima and his team indicated that if the community would, now let me first of all tell you what makes up a community. They are also members of COSATU, the SACP, they are members of the ANC Youth League, there are many other kinds of people who attend a meeting of the community, business people and so on. And their view was, and we accepted that view, that if there was a person the community wanted, but that person was not a member of the ANC, but perhaps a supporter of the ANC, that person would immediately have to become a member of the ANC. Now, I don't have a list, unfortunately, of who that might be. Let me give you a sense of the scale of what we were working with is. We were working on a scale of approximately 20,000 people who would have been put forward communities violated by BGMs to become councillors. So it's 3 times 4,468 plus anybody else from the community. So the scale is not small. And therefore, I don't want to stand here and tell lies. I don't know that at the moment. However, what I can tell you is that once it's been accepted by the community, the ANC branches have accepted it, the regions have accepted it, and so on. De facto, that person is a member of the ANC and can no longer be described as not a member of the ANC. They would have become a member of the ANC. So we are not fielding anyone who is not now a member of the ANC. Let me be just to be very, very clear about that. Secondly, it's form that everybody has to sign. They actually enter into a contract with the ANC. The acceptance form they sign, and it is an oath. It's not just a form. Also, they have to say that I'm a member of the ANC in branch XYZ, and it goes from there. Secondly, they have to commit themselves in that contract with the ANC to follow the guide, the rules and the constitution of the ANC, and also the decisions made at all decision-making structures of the ANC. So it's quite important that I say that to you, so it's clear. We enter into a contract with our would-be councillors, our councillor candidates. On the issue of the red lining, I think they're calling it red lining of South Africa by the UK. It's unfortunate. It's also extremely unfair because the unfairness in it is that although we are redlined, we have not redlined a citizen of the UK from coming to our country. So reciprocity is what is being discussed with the UK at the moment by our DIRCO Department of DIRCO. The ANC does not think it is fair for any country to redline a country and yet expect that country to accept and receive their citizens without question or what, you know. Everybody will have conditions, we understand that. COVID has changed the way in which the world works. So we also may have conditions. You're not going to come to South Africa unless you have a vaccine and can prove so, perhaps. And you will have to go into the isolation period if it needs. So that's not the issue. The issue is the non-acceptance, and that is a problem. Other people were mentioned, yes, in the report. All the people that mentioned by Khalima Mutlandi's report will and are being followed up by the ANC. We, in the NEC, we agreed that whilst it is right to raise the concept of discipline in the NEC, we still have to follow the disciplinary process of. So what we will do now is those that have been mentioned, and if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 that have been mentioned in total. All those 3 people, the recommendation is that there are investigations and disciplinary action be taken. So that you can be assured will happen. I would be very, very careful to cast all regional secretaries in the same vein as those that have been pointed out. So that we deliberately try to delegitimize what was a very good process, led by an independent panel of very senior members of the organization who came very honestly to the NEC and gave a report which will be followed through. Of course, people who are unhappy have already registered themselves as independents. If you didn't register by yesterday, you're not in the game. Registration closed for candidates yesterday. So
been set aside long ago. And Mr. Mklaba, I can't remember that he is on the list for KZN either. But that happened. On this generation of energy ships, the concept was disagreed by environmental affairs, but the energy department felt that there was a need for additional energy. So there is a contradiction, and that's good in a state where you have contradictions, and those contradictions can be sorted out. We in the ANC, our concern would be that we must have reliable, sustainable energy, but also energy that is, our policy is that we must move towards energy that does not harm the environment. So the debate will rage on, because right now we are still relying on 70% of our energy from fossil fuels in the form of coal. We have to at some point move away from that towards solar or any other form of energy, and we have to commit to that. The policy of the organization cannot always be realized overnight, that we know. Because if we insist that no more coal today, then there won't be electricity tomorrow because of this reliance. And I don't know too much about this Kapao ships, but I do know that the matter
car power ships.
Yes, the matter was raised in our Registra. It was discussed, and it was many of us feel very strongly that we cannot have a source of power that will harm marine life. On the other hand, others feel that the source of power is very necessary, and so on. So it is a contradiction, and it's a contradiction we'll have to resolve fairly soon.
Yes. Are we done with all the questions?
10 minutes past 3.
Okay. Thank you very much for the questions.
Can I thank all of you? I'm a little bit jaded today, but many nights of no sleep does that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot. I also brought in a first-time voter.
Yes,
So the ANC has got first-time voters. So the things you were saying to us, people are busy taking their kids to go and register. So all of us must do that. So we all needed the call. Okay.